control tower or the terminal. The buildings were obscured by the horsetails of snow hissing across the runways. There were no other planes taking off or landing. The wind moaned about the lone and immobile Russian aircraft, rising to a shriek where it pushed past innumerable rivets in its metal skin. The snow whispered like blown sand, the millions of tiny pellets of ice pattering and crackling against their clothing, stinging hands and faces. Someone kicked open the door in the side of the plane above Ross's head. A policeman moved backwards, and craning his neck, looked up. A crewman pushed out an aluminum ladder and started to climb down. The flimsy device shook at every step the Russian took. Once on the ice, the crewman turned and looked at Rossa, as if sizing him up, finally jerking his head at the ladder. Rossa did not hesitate. He picked up his bag, hoisted it onto his shoulder, and climbed. 53 minutes later, the plane, a massive, noisy, and uncomfortable contraption called an Ilyushin 76 and chartered from the Russians by the International Committee of the Red Cross, was about to drop from 14,000 feet to a few hundred in 4 minutes, a steep spiral to evade ground fire. Rossa, standing in the cockpit behind the co-pilot, was told by a crewman to bend his knees and get a grip on the fuselage as the nose dipped and twisted sharply. It felt to Rossa like a roller coaster, only a roller coaster was scary in a delicious sort of way because you knew you were safe at a fairground. Here you knew nothing of the sort. Every part of the metal flying machine seemed to be howling in protest. It was a wonder the huge wings weren't torn off. He could see them rocking and trembling. The passenger's luggage was doing its best to escape the netting securing it to the deck. Ross's stomach went into his throat, and he found himself gazing up instead of down at the crests of the snow-crusted hills around the city as they zigzagged toward the runway, standing on one wing, the horizon slipping to the vertical and back again the other way. Any moment there would be the heart-stopping belly flop, the scream of brakes, the roar of reversed engines, and the sudden silence as crew and passengers held their breath and listened for incoming from Serb lines. If the odds were infinitesimal, then how come so many people got hit? No, he told himself, riding on his toes, this is no time for asking questions of that nature. Not in this flying coffin. Be a modest blade of grass instead. Their papers checked and their pathetic bundles searched by UN police, the 6 tired, dispirited Bosnians were led out to the yard behind the terminal, waiting patiently in the mud to board a French armored troop carrier for the run through a Serb checkpoint 800 meters from the French bunker at the airport entrance. It was a half-hourly shuttle service. Always the Serbs, wearing paramilitary blue uniforms and carrying automatic weapons, demanded to check the passengers, and so far at least, the UN soldiers had always denied them the pleasure. Always Rossa could hear their voices raised through the quarter-inch of steel behind his head. It was just a matter of time before the Chetniks decided to force the issue by using crowbars on the hatches. There were 1,001 ways for the separatists to turn the screw, and they knew them all. The detective hoped he wasn't traveling when it happened. He sat near the rear of the Panhard and glimpsed the wreck of the city's lone Bosnian T-55 tank in the ditch, red with rust, and its 105mm gun pointed impotently at a bruised gray sky, the muzzle choked with ice. He didn't have to come back, Rossa told himself. That tank made his heart sink every time he saw it. It stood for everything that had gone wrong, the false hopes, the clutching at straws, the ease with which the Serbs had bottled them up in this ghetto of a city. Squinting through the peephole set in the rear doors, Rossa mentally ticked off each stage in the journey. There were the gutted houses lining their route, the windows and doors like empty eye sockets in fleshless skulls, each a potential firing point for a sniper. Muslims to the left, Serbs to the right. Here was the worst. He could hear the gears shift, the whine of the engine change as the troop carrier began to ascend the flyover at the western entrance to the city. Frequently mortared, and where both sides played chicken with UN patrols by firing rocket-propelled grenades at them,